Yeah, just one correction. I was not responsible for military affairs in the embassies. I was responsible for the political affairs. This gave me the chance and the opportunity to talk to all relevant parties in the countries and the surrounding countries. And so I learned a lot about Islam, about these countries, about the possibilities, and I'm really upset concerning the migration we are getting out of these countries. So I use a paper. This is a very rare occasion because normally I speak free, absolutely. But this is a very difficult time because I get very angry when I touch some topics, and I don't want to use the wrong word maybe, because we have election time in Germany in one very important federal state, and I want to be not the guy who is responsible to use a wrong word and show that he is a Nazi, that he proved he's a Nazi. So, I'm reading my text, I'm educated, it's a very proved text, and maybe a little bit boring, but I'm talking only about facts, not about emotions, otherwise the audience will be a little bit warm. Okay, my topic for today is the suppression as well as eradication of national identity, the migration crisis, and the consequences for Germany. On the 22nd of September 2013, Chancellor Merkel was celebrating her party victory on stage. The General Secretary at that time, Grohe, stood next to her and waved a very small German flag. As Merkel noticed, she immediately tore out the flag from Grohe's hand and ensured that the flag was immediately disposed. Chancellor Merkel did not want any national symbol on stage. This little episode may maybe illustrate very well the mental situation in Germany. Any commitment in Germany to our country, to our roots, to our symbol, to our history, immediately gives you the name Nazi. Everything. Even harmless remarks can openly cause displeasure. At one of my lectures in Bavaria, I do lectures on Islam, on different military topics, etc. In this most conservative federal state, I greeted the audience with the usual greeting, Grüß Gott. That means, greet God or God bless you. I subsequently was informed by the audience, by several voices, that I could not use these greetings as it would exclude all people they do not belong to the Christian faith. It is a paradox that I would face such words in Bavaria, a very conservative state. However, considering that the entire educational system in Germany are part of suppressing and replacing our culture, our tradition, our roots for a new world order, for a new multicultural world with no national borders, maybe it was not strange that when I mentioned Grüß Gott, I would cause these resentments because they are used in a different thinking than we all here. As Christianity itself one of the main targets for a focus behind the pro-migratory narrative. This assault on our national identity is led by politicians, media, and the self-proclaimed cultural elite, most of which are paid by the German taxpayer. They very openly and bluntly demand the abolition of Germany. I give you some examples. People will finally say goodbye to the illusion that Germany belongs to the Germans. The concept of love the fatherland always made me vomit. I never knew what to do with Germany, and I still do not know what to do. This was mentioned by Habeck, the party leader of the Greens. On 3rd of October, a country was dissolved, and many are happy 25 years later. Why should this not succeed once again with Germany at all? This type of self-hate is also manifested by the politician in the last years in demonstration. And one of these wonderful examples is Claudia Roth. She is Bundestag Vice President, who has been carried signs or demonstration where mentioned never again Germany, or she running behind the signs Germany mislead, Germany is a piece of shit, and she is happy about that. And many other politicians I personally witnessed, they are happy, and I ask them, I address this, why the hell you're running behind such words? I am proud of this. We have only one world, like under drugs. No one is seemingly upset about these types of statements. Mainstream media just report this without any critics, and some media outlets actually report one of these statements with joy. So we have an attraction. And I want to provide you some other examples that I witnessed in Germany. However, please note that I mentioned these examples only as a testament to the absurd viewpoint this group of people in Germany. I do not mention it due to any intention from my side to relate it to a wider political or historical context. This self-loathing in Germany has reached such extreme height that a politician of the Pirate Party made a public statement call for a new bomber Harris. He emerged to bomb Germany as it was. That means we have to destroy Germany. And it is very difficult if you oppose like that. They will call you a Nazi. This is my opinion. It is a suicide for a society. This last example of the Germans' urge of self-destruction or his abolition of a part of the oath previously sworn in the state parliament of German federal state North Rhine-Westphalia. The oath contains the words "for the benefit of the German people." I want to stress the German people. This part was decided to be removed and replaced with "good for the land of North Rhine-Westphalia," because the reason behind the left wants to denounce the discrimination against people they have not the German citizenship. The new oath reflects only the social reality in our state, which is characterized more than any other by immigration. So this was the Green parliamentarian Stefan Engsfeld. A very interesting secular argument. So, okay. By a person representing one of the driving forces responsible for the current situation. My questions in relation to this are, if you do not commit to work for your own country, your own area, who do I actually work for? And what is the legitimate authority to do this? There's no answer, because we are all human beings. My conclusion is that Germany is unwell, as some parts of German population seeks to abolish itself. When I criticize this movement that builds on self-loathing and seeks self-destruction of the very foundation that provided the prosperity and social security we witnessed the past 75 years in the West, I'm often called a Nazi. We all the time repeat the word Nazi, so this is my second name. I have to sign it now with Berhard Nazi Zimniok. Just because I demand the preservation and maintenance of a national identity for Germany. This does make me a racist.
Can you please speak into the microphone?
Yeah, okay. Okay, I try to do so. Normally I don't use a mic for this small audience. We Europeans, especially Germans, we try to appease. Is it better now? Okay, very culture that arrives within our borders. We show them respect and submit all the cultural and, for us, foreign rules, but they do not reciprocate. In our modern Western societies, we call this integration. Here it should be noted that integration is a two-way process, a process of give and take. This process is nothing that a majority of voters in Germany approved. Furthermore, in the United Nations Convention, it is stated that this assimilation, that it should be the norm for the newcomers, not migration. However, this was conveniently forgotten by those who seek a cultural revolution, not only for Germany, but for the whole Western world. The process of integration we have used in Germany is rather to be described as a process of appeasement to cater to most, if not to all, demands from the new culture migration in our nation. We do this in Germany because this is the power way to behave. The politically correct way, we are tolerant, enlightened, cosmopolitan, and if you ask me, stupid, very, very stupid. I'm firmly convinced that every person in a state needs to have a certain feeling of belonging to a common culture and history in order for a state to be able to guarantee functional government. But here in the West, we have come to expect and ultimately guarantee rules of law for all. A culture that includes such aspects as a common language, shared tradition, and to a certain degree values guarded by a justice system, without any notion of connection, links, of togetherness to our neighbors. The whole society, the idea starts to fall apart. In these modern times, our societies with an identity to be viewed as something undesirable. Should this instead to be replaced by an individualization without a social glue, this is a fatal illusion and a self-deception of a giant proportion. A modern democratic state needs a solid social platform, frame of reference providing unity and togetherness in order for a governance structure as well as the system of business to properly function and not risk to become a failed state. Opening our Western society to a notion that we have nothing that binds our societies together due to the fact that we have nothing to be proud of distressing enough. If we in addition open up for large-scale migration with no assimilation from groups who themselves possess a high degree of cultural belonging and whose culture is highly incompatible with our host culture, it is of course disastrous, provided that you seek to preserve and develop our national culture and not to destroy it. As just indicated, one critical element is when one culture allow and even encourage other cultures to settle in our or in your nation that possess the following characteristics. First, radically different value systems that often are extremely archaic from the Western point of view, a strong resistance, even disdain of the host culture, and third, the people themselves, the value bearers of these new cultures that are both able, willing, and most of all used to employ lethal force in their pursuit of personal, clan, or group goals. If this group then, as often the case, combines religious and or policy doctrine with violent inventions, we have an explosive mixture. In Pakistan, where I lived for a long time, I experienced this. The Christians in Pakistan suffer enormously. They are killed and oppressed as they make easy victims due to the fact that they are marginalized and often almost defenseless. The more often they not represent an outlet for the angry Muslims who want to take revenge on the devil United States or the West in general. Nobody criticized the occurrences, and the bishops in the country are well advised to be quiet and not to provoke more violence. Even the Pope does not dare to speak out. He would raise his voice and describe the reality as it is. However, he seeks dialogue. Since the 60s, it started with dialogue and there was no response. Dialogue is interpreted by the Muslim side as weakness and submission. Currently, we have a situation where more Christians than ever before are being persecuted. More than 250,000 Christians worldwide, mainly in Muslim-dominated countries, are oppressed, persecuted, and killed. The cultures that oppose this radical different value system, often extremely archaic to us, in the West rely on a strong association to the family and clan. In order to achieve that, this person has to submit completely to the community, the so-called Ummah, where social control is an instrument part of their societal system. Violation of the rules are sanctioned harshly by the clan and the family. So there is no way to escape. And when they are coming to the West, there is no control mechanism. That's the problem. Already we had detected an incompatible element for assimilation into the Western style for representatives of such cultures. Clan cultures disqualifies the individual already to the outset of become a productive and valuable member of the society, according to our style. They become a parallel society or more parallel society. It depends what groups are forming in what area. We have the experience in Germany, where the groups, especially the Turkish community, is familiar with this area, the Afghans with this one, so they split Germany in different areas. Here we are faced with the famous square peg in a round hole. Regardless of how much the infant tries, it just will not fit. And this is the situation where we are. We can detect the same type of infantile behaviors and disappointing, albeit predictable results from the liberal left, who, despite mounting costs for their already frayed credibility, still endeavor to save the pro-migratory narrative and to abolish all national boundaries. In Germany, we can look back on several decades of experience with attempts to appease, not integrate, and certainly not assimilate. The Turks who come as guest worker, they formed a different culture, and they remain. No significant trace of the wanted integration can be witnessed. We are already further away from it than at the beginning of the early 60s, when the first Turkish guest worker came to our country. The third generation of these Turks largely rejects our value and our freedom. Half of this group sets the religious rules over our constitution. They tell it very public and very openly. Nobody said something. As I said, integration is a tool for societal cohesion, has proven to meet failures. This result is due to two main reasons. I will start with the secondary reason for this. Integration is ill-suited, as well as not democratically sanctioned process. The process implemented should have been that assimilation in combination with only a selected and very controlled number of migrants being allowed to arrive, who must possess and display a genuine interest in being assimilated. However, the primary reason for this failure is the colonial notion of the West, that not only do all other cultures in the world aspire to be like in the West, but they need to be like us. Nothing could be further from the truth. It is far to say that, of course, there are individuals from our cultures that view parts of the culture represented in the West as something to aspire to, but the vast majority do not. That is not the reason they arrive in the West. This has led to the inevitable existence of several parallel societies in Germany, just as elsewhere in the West. In many discussions I have had in recent years, Muslim representatives make no secret out of it, of the fact that our society will soon be transformed through their numbers, through their sheer numbers of birth rate, and their creation of political parties within our democratic system to return our society. This is communicated very openly. However, the German continues to indulge in this multicultural dream world and appeases the migrant so they can cultural pride not be blemished. It is the task of all German politicians to safeguard our democratic tradition, cultural legacy, and the future of our children. This is especially true since it is clear for all this massive migration from vastly different cultures will not lead to problems, but the inevitable destruction of our democratic system as we know it. If we look back to 2015, Merkel opened not only the borders of Germany, but also external EU borders, ensuring an uncontrolled influx of about 1.5 million people from many of the most dysfunctional areas and states of the world. As a result, Germany was overrun and completely lost the control. I've seen this tragedy at our borders. I've seen this tragedy on our distribution centers. And I saw this tragedy on the main stations where they are coming on. I witnessed this bedlam in Munich at the main station where mostly women greeted the foreign young men with teddy bears and hugs. Unbelievable. A friend of mine, this is a remark beside this, a friend of mine was arrested because he waved one of the signs that were mentioned normally, refugees welcome, bring your families. There was mentioned through refugees are welcome, bring your families. And the good woman, they try to beat him, the police arrest him, take fingerprints, handle him like a criminal, because he only wants to express his opinion, which is normally guaranteed in Article 5 in our basic law. He was arrested. Okay, come back to the notes. Subsequently, it was not enough to just greet the country's nationals upon arrival, but they need to carry it for terms of accommodation, health service, food, clothes, and other supplies. This onslaught of 1.5 million people, nobody knows exactly up to now the exact figures, has brought Germany to the edge. Schools, hotels, container settlements, and large tents had to be organized. An army of volunteers came involved in the name of goodness. Criticism was not welcomed at all. It was frowned upon and declared undesirable. This despite the fact that it was clear from the very outset that the majority of the arrivals constitute economic migrants using the asylum institution for their own benefit. They were and are, in my view, to consider asylum frauders. Individuals preying on valuable resources earmarked by us for people who are really in need. Anyone that dared to question this and point out of the gigantic fraud that was ongoing was declared as a monster and a Nazi. Here I am. For those who drive the Cultural Revolution and the abolishment of the nation-state of the West, this event was a cause heaven sent, and any factual analysis and description of the event had to be suppressed. Eckhard Göring, also a Green, a representative of the Greens, said, "It will be rough. Germany will change. I am happily looking forward to this." Now we're in the situation, Germany changed. If we now look back in the last 4 years at the changes in Germany, what's happened? Let us examine some different aspects. The main thing, it's very much undisputable, is the housing market, because here we have reliable facts. All other facts are fake, or most of them are fakes or not complete. The housing market. The German population is shrinking due to a low birth rate of around 1.3%, and this in turn means that a significant amount of living space have been left due to this fact. However, the opposite is the case. About 400,000 new apartments are now needed annually, and yet we are only capable to provide 300,000. The main reason for this is that the entire construction industry is currently utilized, that there no more building capacity is left. So if you have any problem with your house, you have to wait 3 months, 4 months, or half a year to come, that somebody's coming and look for it. As a result, construction prices rose steeply. Bavaria aims to complete 28,000 new apartments by the end of this year at a cost of 2.6 billion euro. That means 2,600. I think in English this is billion. We call it this is trillion in this case. At the same time, private investors are extremely reluctant as initiatives to cut rents in Germany was launched and even approved in several parts of Germany. In Berlin, a law was now under progress that even requires reduction of the consequent reimbursement of previous rent paid by the tenants. This makes the housing market for rental accommodation completely uninteresting. No private investor will invest. At present, we have a return in Munich for investors of about between 0.5% or 1%. It depends on the age of when he bought it. Against the complete risk the investor have for his investment. Consider the consequence of the example from Munich, my hometown. We officially have about 15,000 third country nationals, I call it migrants, that was classified as refugees. These individuals then had to be taken care of and accommodated despite the lack of accommodation and have the right to bring their families. In addition, and to make the situation worse, the city of Munich sold in the last years the public housing in order to replenish the city treasury. We call it the Stadtsäcke. In 2015, Munich had a surplus of around 800 million in the city treasury, and by 2020, officially, we have a negative balance of minus 1.3 trillion euro. How could this situation change so significantly? The answer is that new social housing now needed to be built for the new citizen. Several thousands, and the cost amount 1.3 trillion. Everywhere in Munich, the building works are ongoing, and as if there is no tomorrow. If you see the horizon, cranes. Blocks of flats, even whole settlements are being raised, so that family reunification can take place smoothly. Only in my constituency, there were several thousand apartments built in one place. Now we have 3 places. Yesterday I witnessed, we have in one place 6,000, the other one 1,000 and 1,500 in a circle of around about 3 kilometers. Don't forget. Well, so far so bad. In passing, also in this very close to my home, 3 to 4 room apartments were built, every around 100 square meter. The house is, this big housing is around about for 6,000 people built. In regard to rent level, the rent level for such houses were 35% increased in the last 5 years. So you can imagine. In Munich, if you rent an apartment nowadays, it is 18 euro a square meter without costs like heating, like power and whatever, electricity. These lead to the current situation where the average earner needs to utilize about half of the income of a family to pay the cost of their accommodation. Furthermore, the acquisition of property cannot be financed by a working income alone. To purchase prices have risen sharply to now, within the last 4 years, from 5,000 to 10,000 square meter per square meter. So nobody can afford it. In a sharp contrast, everything is free for our new citizen in terms of basic needs for life, such as housing, food, education, and health service. In addition, there are extra social facilities like pre-nursery, nursery. They were built extra for these houses, and they have social stations. It's very unusual for us. Social stations, they are equipped with 2 persons day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 hours a week. So these facilities are staffed, as I mentioned, around the clock. Therefore, Munich hired in the last 3 years 800 additional social workers to handle these problems. They take care for these third country nationals. And according official statements, even the major, I was talking with the major, he confirmed 80 to 90% of the new buildings are reserved only for migrants. No Germans have access to this. In a sharp contrast, the German part of the population have to pay and wait a considerable time for a free apartment. That means the people, they have not this amount of money to afford this 18 euro per square meter. So they are asking for 9 and 10 and 11. But they have to wait in an extremely long row in these last years. So what happens? The last years alone, 28,000 persons moved out of Munich to the surrounding countryside. That means not 10 or 20 kilometers, since they could not longer afford the high rents. I know about cases of individuals who has now to commute daily for at least 3 hours or more to go to work. This isn't a problem, but Munich is still in a mood where they want to support the new migrants. Nobody cares about the people, though. Well, during this period, I'm talking about the last 4 years, the number of homeless citizens increased rapidly. In Munich alone, in 2017, within 4 months, the number of homeless persons rose from 1,000 people to 7,700. And then, in the end of the year, it was 10,000, and now no figures are available. No figures are available. Munich is now clean because the police cleaned the city, because if foreigners are coming, they are wondering why a rich city like Munich, why there are hundreds of people in the road, like in Calcutta. So, and if you ask for a group, these are not persons from not only persons from South Eastern Europe. No, these are Munich people from Munich and surrounding. They are at around about, according one survey, 20% women and children within this group. It's completely unusual for a rich country, and is a shame. So, but I think if you don't believe, stroll even on daytime to Munich in the best roads, and you will see a number of people, elder people especially, they are looking for cans and plastic to get a little money out of it, of the trash of the civilization. But in the same time, this was published, on a very short time, it was like a peak. It was a shame for a minute. At the same time, in 2017, Munich spent 400,000 euros a month for one building, for a so-called refugee center. In the city, in the middle of the city, the center employed 35 staff members. They take care about between 8 and 15 underaged foreigners. Can you imagine? Day and night, 400,000. This is a shame. On the one hand, you have people they pick up in trash cans, on the other side, they throw the money out without no bad remorse. Well, if you as a concerned citizen and good for a bit as a politician would dare to address this unequal and unjust treatment, as well as questions the use of taxpayer money, then you were and still are, like me, a racist and a Nazi, of course. This effort is most strongly put forward by individuals within the left, the liberal left, and even more from remnants of the extreme left political parties that was rebranded as Green parties in the 80s and 90s. The same group that spearheads the suicide of the cult of the Western world is in Hamburg. We have the politician Stephanie von Berg from the Greens again. Our city will change radically. I think that in 20, 30 years, we will lose our ethnic majorities in the city, and I will add a very clear message to especially all people on the right of the political spectrum, that this is good. And they get our applause from the media. Despite statements like this from the far left-wing representatives, we have today come to empirically know and prove that the level of education among the predominantly illegal and economic migrants arriving in Europe 2015 and after is extremely low to non-existing. To be very frank, this person, and I may take the time to point this out, to no fault of their own, are simply not suited for our high qualified labor market in Germany and in all Europe, because we have a certain standard and you can't learn things within a couple of days or with one training course, while other people need 20 and 30 years. This is the reality. But we had to be guided by, rather than facts, by feelings, and the debate had not been silenced with unjust and highly unethical labeling of dissidents, such as myself and many others in my party. But the mainstay in German politicians, media, and the social elite ensure us, the public, that these migrants, we would receive the necessary specialists as doctors, nurses, engineers, rocket driver, whatever, I don't know. Instead, we have received a huge volume of illiterates. Only a few have received school education. These people will therefore not be able to take on simple jobs. If there is any incentives for subsidies, often are high enough to make official work unattractive. The hunt for simple jobs has now led to a cutthroat competition among the lower wage groups. This specific problem is further compounded by public subsidies. When someone hires a so-called migrant as a public subsidize, usually will account around about 50% of the wage. This has a natural effect that displaces German citizens from the labor market. In addition, the third country nationally receive full access to our social security system after a very short period of around about 3 months in Germany, and eligible for the same benefits as a German. The same benefits. A guy who's working 50 years or 40 years have the same level. This makes the situation even unjust, and the third country nationals are in some situation even in better position than the citizen in terms of claiming their benefits. If a German citizen applies for basic social welfare because he's kicked out of the job, and must disclose his entire financial circumstances, and almost all his savings have been used before he or she can receive state-sponsored money. However, the third country nationals do not have to disclose any of their financial circumstances. That is the difference. In order to dispel so-called fears of foreigners, hide the factual problems with migration, and show how successful the policy of integration is, the running elite ensure that all Germans and their children and grandchildren born outside Germany's current borders receive the status of immigrant background. Hence, I also have this status since my father is from Silesia, now Poland today, and my wife too. There's also from the same area, so we have our child is also a child with a migrant background. Well, this is a statistical magic based on really on politics. Now we have 18% of the population in Germany with a migrant background. Of course, Germany are then declared to have a background as migration. This turns the left, liberal left media to conclude that Germany's integration is a fantastic process. It's a success story. So, I have a migrant background since 4 years. I wasn't aware about this. Well, a few words about the crime and the security situation. This is a very yes, I know, I'm in a hurry, but I'm the last one, so I torture you, the question will be less. A few words about the crime and the security situation. Karin Göring-Eckardt, I already quote her. of course, Islam belongs to Germany, and of course, Muslims belong to Germany, and I think we can be very happy about that. It would be very boring if we are only dealing with ourselves. I ask how this new, exciting and not boring existence of citizens and other persons staying in Germany developed after 2015. Well, we have been able to record crime types never heard about of centuries maybe, such as group rapes, large gathering of men, as well as underage individuals. We have a significant rise of crime such as sexual harassment, robbery, serious assault and murders. Third country nationals are disproportionately represented in the crime statistic, as they commit a lot of these various crimes. I don't talk about figures now, you can read it on the internet, but you find a huge variety. It's the question, what is a crime? The definition, and they always take Germans as somebody with, they will talk about migrants or with some migrant background, they talk about Germans. So it makes it difficult to judge it. So we cut it. Well, okay, I give it a fall, okay? The Bavarian Interior Minister Hermann could only provide a politically correct statement in walking after this publishing of the BKA report, walking like a cat around on hot saucer of milk. He managed to do that. Now there are obviously people from other cultures who come to us in homeland. Non-violence as they are cultivate is not so obvious. A very polite description of the situation where the most criminals are coming from. Here should have stated the obvious. If he took this position seriously in order to protect his people, the people they actually pay for his salary in this office against domestic and foreign threats, we have allowed people of vastly different cultures to settle in our society. They care little for us and no care for our culture, and that possesses a significant lower threshold to use violence to reach their goals. They also, due to their culture, viewpoints and status, not fully without our sanction system and thus more free to commit criminal acts that the German citizen would hesitate or even refrain from committing. As pointed out previously, the pro-migratory narrative being based on large false assumptions and political ideas continually fail to stand up scrutiny based on facts. Most liberal left politicians are completely uninterested in the raw data, the facts, as it will challenge the pro-migrant narrative. Hence, these politicians attempt to obfuscate the facts so that it becomes hard to impossible to obtain a full understanding of reality. Thus, in Germany, many crimes are not listed separately in the statistic. Only in few places has this attempt from the factophobes been averted. On such places, in terms of criminal statistic in North Rhine-Westphalia, were more in detailed categories as officially available. As a telling example, in 2019, that means the current year, in the current months from January till August, were a total of 2,883 knife attacks that had a total 3,555 victims in this half year. Germany become colorful. Some individual claim. I claim that this definition of colorful is a new word of idiots. And in addition, we have managed to import the word conflict spectra to Germany. It is not only the security of the individual out for a walk with a dog that was compromised, it is also national security that being undermined with this policy. Concerning state security, it is worth noting that, for example, the Turkish diaspora form a relative homogeneous community that is easily controlled from outside. A situation that had arisen in the past when, for example, Erdogan called the Turks in Germany not to go to the ballot box during the last election. What's happened? The turnout of the Turkish population fell from 83 to 63%. Many migrant groups are very well interconnected, mainly due to their close-knit culture, their position in the diaspora, in the foreign countries, and naturally their technical ability with the internet and the social media. This poses a danger for Germany, just as it does for other nations. What if there were restrictions due to major economic problems, if religious feelings are hurt? Can you imagine somebody is burning a Quran in the middle of a marketplace? Germany will burn. So, as occurred during the so-called Mohammed caricatures, everybody knows this group can throw their close night society, cultural, determined fervor, and use for modern communication gather with an exceptional speed. I've experienced this in Pakistan. If this would occur in Germany on any sizable scale, we could not handle the situation with our police. I recall the G20 summit in Hamburg. In order to control the unrest caused by 1,500 chaotic protesters, all police reserves of Germany were mobilized. As police reserves, frankly, if any large-scale riots on different places happens, Germany will be in a very, very difficult position and we will collapse. This you have to think about. If 1% of the people that are here make unrest in a violent way, we are lost. Important concessions are made in the name of tolerance, as we Germans do all we can not to hurt the foreign and sometimes totally alliance concept entrenched and in the cultural and religious habits of the newcomers. Halal food must be served in schools, kindergarten, as well as in canteens, and naturally almost all pork products are removed. Even breaks for prayer are allowed for assembly line workers. It has gone so far that the school class contains one Muslim child when the rules of Ramadan must be observed by the whole class, even if the Muslim pupil or student and his family has not even asked for this. In the Kurds, where social judgments are passed, more consideration were given for the customs of Sharia, where even violence towards women within the marriage is judged differently than if the husband and wife would be from Germany. I can continue and make a very, very long list about this, sufficient to say that this is disturbing how we try to appease very different cultures, that they are on head-on collision with our German culture. But then again, this is a strategy of the suicide cult presided over the left liberals. By removing our pride in our culture, our achievements and our lessons from history, from bad for worse. They remove the bonds of our cultures and nations so they can be dismantled and overtaken by other cultures who do not have the slightest plan to appease anyone, but rather it only interest to the subjunction of other cultures. The composition of the population in Germany is on the way to change irreversible. Studies claim when the society receives segments of 16 to 70% Muslim, that society change irreversible. The segment of the population that today is in Germany is around estimated 6 to 8%. There are no exact figures available. If we turn to the church, it could be assumed it would be a critical of Islam is 205,000 Christians are persecuted, oppressed and killed every year in the name of Islam. However, this is not the case in Germany. Instead of an open discussion, an open debate about the incompatibility and the persecution of Christians, the church operates in the shadow. They seek dialogue with and invites Muslims to worship together. However, anyone who is familiar with the Islam knows that this cannot work. Just like Judaism, Christianity is only a preliminary stage of the Islam. Indeed, this is an aberration. Islam is the only true faith. All other religions are records of people and thus fault. So this leads to the question if the church leaders are less intelligent, but I expect it is all about greed. The Catholic and Protestant churches lost, for example, last year 700,000 of their believers, of their members, and the tax, the income for these churches raised. So how could this be possible? Well, the answer is very simple. that churches operate charitable organizations that make huge profit out of this refugee and migrant industry. Here is the worth to point out that the annual cost of the migration of Germany is officially 26 trillion. Reputable Business Institute provides the figures to be closer to 60 a year. Anyone who voices any doubts in the church about this meaningful migration are banned. Bishops and pastors provide clear recommendation to their congregation how to cast their votes in local and national election, and openly as well as urgent warn the flock against voting the AfD. AfD members are themselves excluded from facilities managed by the church, such as kindergarten, pre-kindergarten. The church also terminate the employment contracts of staff affiliated with the AfD.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Because we're running out of time.
Okay, so, okay. This is my last example, and then I have to close due to the time. But I think I hope to see you once again. Okay, and this is the very last example I will tell you, because one of our AfD members I know very well for a long time turned to me and complained that a priest did not want to baptize his newborn child because he's a member of AfD. This despite the fact that this is a long time serving for the church. So, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, time is running. Thank you for attention. I know I'm overdue, but there are so many things to say. And thanks God for you that I keep on track. But otherwise, when I speak free, I will stay here till tomorrow.